Business Bank.
Hi, I'm Rick Blavelone, second-generation owner and CEO of Marketing Innovators and a customer of Signature Bank. Our family-run company was founded on the belief that connecting to people on a human level is the best way to build a great business. And when we were looking for a new bank, we didn't have to look far. We shared an office building with Signature Bank in Rosemont and quickly saw that they were truly locally owned and operated. That's why we partnered with Signature. And that relationship makes every business decision better and every communication clearer. Marketing Innovators looks forward to a long-lasting relationship with Signature Bank.
Signature Bank is looking for their next success story. To learn more about turning your business vision into reality, visit signaturebank.bank. Signature Bank, helping local businesses succeed. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
8:08, AM 560 Traffic Center time, and Jim.
Metro officials are telling us this morning you may have delays on the Union Pacific North Line, ranging 15 to 30 minutes after some earlier mechanical issues that would affect both the inbound and outbound sides. On the inbound Kennedy Expressway, your trip time is 20 minutes O'Hare to downtown. Reversibles are open inbound, and outbound it's 20 minutes downtown to the airport for the Eisenhower. 28 minutes inbound or outbound between 390 and downtown. The Stevenson, likewise 28 minutes in either direction between the Veterans Memorial Tollway and Lakeshore Drive. Inbound Ryan, traffic gets a little stuffy going into the Burn Circle. It is 16 minutes, 95th to downtown, outbound 14. I-57, 16 minutes, I-80 to the Verge. Asia Ford 13. That's traffic. I'm Jim Talamonte on AM 560, The Answer.
Jim, thank you. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next in our AM 560 Weather Center. Our meteorologist, Steve Williams.
Rather cloudy for today and tonight. High today 31, low tonight at 18. A partly sunny day tomorrow, the high 25. Partly sunny Wednesday, windy and a high 32. A sunny windy day on Thursday, the high 39. I'm Steve Williams on AM 560, The Answer.
It is 27 right now. Next news at 8:30. Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan and Amy continues next on AM 560, The Answer.
From the Matrix Home Solutions studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560, The Answer.
Listen to AM 560, The Answer, online at 560theanswer.com, on the AM 560 mobile app, and your Alexa-powered smart speaker, on TuneIn, iHeart, and radio.com. This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560, The Answer.
Mike Madigan runs the Democratic House floor for 30 plus years running. He's promising this and he's stealing that. Where can you get that kind of money? He's using your house like his own piggy bank. You ought to know by now. You can pay off your house here in Illinois, but you can never keep up with the taxes. Oh, how it's always been the plan to have a taxpayer pay, no doubt. Not a matter of if anymore, but when you're moving out.
Yeah, Dan and Amy, we got to update that a little bit to reflect the departure of Mike Madigan, but nothing really changed. The underlying song works very well inside. Lovely. It's my favorite parody song. And Steve Malanga, our friend over at the Manhattan Institute, where he's our senior fellow, he's also contributed to the City Journal, has written a piece about home ownership in Chicago. And it's interesting because I know there's a lot of people out there, just from conversations, who, boy, the suburban market in Chicago is really hot. People fleeing density and so forth. Yeah. Industrial real estate is good because of all the warehouse space that's needed for the big tech companies to distribute the goods you buy online.
7 people on my street have moved. 3 homes can't sell.
What's the story here? Are we going to have a wonderful housing market in Chicago and Chicagoland in spite of the property taxes that I lament so often? For an answer to that question, please be joined by Steve Malanga. Steve, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure.
So, depending on how you calculate it, the highest property taxes in the nation here in Illinois. New Jersey can make a claim, I understand. But let's just say they are here because my calculations suggest they are, and so do some others. But that's not a big deal. We can get by that. And housing market is hot. The Chicago Fed contact in Des Moines said home construction was at its highest level in more than a decade. And then the market for land was quite competitive. Industrial side of the economy remains solid. Demand for industrial space robust. Interest in office and retail space decreased further. No surprise there. But on the residential side, boy, this is nothing but good news in terms of the pace of transactions that indicate a robust market.
Well, there are a couple of things going on. First of all, the property tax increases are really what's key here. It's not just whether it's the highest in the marketplace, but the study by the Cook County Treasurer found that over the last 20 years, property taxes have increased residential property taxes in Chicago proper have increased at more than 150%. That's way, way more than the rate of inflation, and it's way, way more than salaries have increased. And it's one of the reasons why, for the past 6 or 7 years, Chicago has had the weakest residential housing market in the country out of the top 20 markets. Appreciation at minus 1 or 2%. Now, since the pandemic, and what's happening is dense cities around the country are seeing their suburban markets increase rapidly. Chicago remains, I just checked the numbers, like 19th out of 20th markets in terms of appreciation for homes inside the city itself. And the problem is, as you know, as everybody should know, the pension costs and other debt costs are so high that most of these property tax increases are going to pay pensions, not to build new schools, not for roads, but just into pensions, which basically gives the taxpayer nothing for it. So that's the challenge that the city faces. And it's not a challenge that ends when the pandemic ends, because these pension costs are enormous, and you see a steady stream of increases that have been predicted by the actuaries of the pension system over the next 5 to 10 years.
And we're not just talking police and fire. We're talking about school teacher pensions. How bad is that?
Well, exactly. School teachers, also just the general service workers, people who pick up the garbage and so forth, they're all well below 50%. Police and fire are at 25%, which for a pension system, that means basically that they have 25% of the money that they need. Now, the thing is, for a pension system, many experts say that once it gets below 50% funded, it's almost impossible to save, because that's money that's not just missing that we're going to pay people's pensions, but it's money that's supposed to be invested now in the stock market, earning returns. So all these great returns that we've seen in the last 6 months, the Chicago pension system, because it's 25% funded for police and fire, it's getting almost none of that benefit, and that's part of the problem right now. It's so underfunded that it just seems like a never-ending effort to dig its way out.
But not to worry, because Illinois and these other blue states are getting bailed out by Joe Biden. His $1.9 trillion COVID relief package includes $250 billion for states and localities. Well, that's great news if you don't pay any attention to the numbers and try and match them up. But even if Illinois got every single one of those $250 billion, we still wouldn't be out of the hole that we've dug with respect to unfunded pension and healthcare liabilities. So it seems like some of the residents of states like Illinois and California, New York, Connecticut, going to have to come to terms with the fact that what they're going to get from the federal government, despite what their politicians are telling them, are fractions of a penny on the dollars they need.
Well, yeah, the way I would put it is the whole argument about stimulus in Washington over the last 6 months, and obviously that's going to change now with Biden and a Democratic Congress. But the whole argument has been about how much has the pandemic caused damage, to their budgets. So there is some damage to the budgets from pandemics. So frankly, some governors, and Pritzker is one of them, and I would say Cuomo and Newsom are two others, have been looking for more money. They basically want money, as you suggest, to pay for their other problems too. But the fact of the matter is that when you can combine the pandemic with the amount of debt that Chicago and also that the state of Illinois already have, well, even what the federal government is offering, and we'll see if this legislation actually passes, is not enough. And when I say we'll see if it passes, because I'm telling you that people from other states, including Democratic-run states, who don't have these kinds of debts, have been saying to their legislators in Washington, why should we be offering money to help pay for debts when we've paid off our debts?
You mentioned that residential property taxes have, in the last 20 years, have increased at 8 times the rate of inflation. Also, commercial property taxes have increased at 4 times the rate of inflation in Chicago. Some additional context. I mean, that's probably just normal in big cities and blue states around the country, Steve.
Well, it's interesting. It actually isn't normal. I'll tell you a couple of things. First of all, in general, most cities and states, they don't tax commercial properties that much more than residential. They do somewhat more, but not that much more. Blue states have more of a history of taxing commercial property more. The problem is that eventually, if you look at a place like Illinois in general, there's a lot of talk of businesses moving out of the state. So as you shift to taxing commercial properties more, that's basically warehouses and office towers and so forth, you add to the debate about whether we need to leave for other reasons. And Illinois is already a big out-migration state, one of the states that loses more people than other states. And, anytime you're raising property taxes on businesses, you're essentially increasing the argument to leave. So, the Illinois economy has not been great, even pre-pandemic, compared to other states. And that it's a matter of competition. And I've never seen more competition among the states in my time writing about this stuff as I'm seeing right now, for obvious reasons. It's kind of almost a winner-take-all game. And so, Illinois has got some real disadvantages in that respect right now.
Well, what would the COVID bailout money mean? I mean, we'll probably get $14 billion here. The city of Chicago will get $3 billion, maybe some to the schools. Then could we maybe lower our property taxes once they get that money?
I don't think any of that COVID money is enough to lower property taxes. As you probably know, Lori Lightfoot put about $100 million of property tax increases in this current budget, which just really passed in December. So maybe what that money does is it helps moderate future increases. But the problem is that these debts are 15 to 20 years in being paid back. So at best, it doesn't dig you out of a hole. What it does is it moderates the increases, over the next year or so, which, frankly, a lot of governors and mayors around the country, that's all they're interested in. They're just let's just get through this right now, and let's face it, they're looking at what they have to do to fix their budgets while they're in office. And one of the reasons some places like Illinois and Chicago have problems is because mayors and governors have often governed basically for their term in office, not worrying about what the consequences are when they leave.
If only we could raise income taxes here so that we could provide property tax relief the same way that when New Jersey instituted an income tax or Connecticut instituted their income tax, which is the latest one to graduate their state income tax, the most recent state to do so. When those two states instituted or graduated their income taxes, then they provided property tax relief, and property taxes fell in New Jersey and Connecticut, didn't they? Or did they?
Yeah. No, that never happened. That is a very, very good subject for a story. A guy actually wrote a book about this in the 90s. I think you could write a new one right now. Is that basically income taxes, when they came into play, because states, of course, the income taxes of states are not necessarily, they're not as old as the federal income tax. Let's just say that. They're much newer. And when income taxes were, basically they were argued as a way to replace property taxes, a fairer way to tax people. And the way they were pitched in a lot of places in New Jersey, I use as an example in a recent piece I wrote, it's just an easier and fairer way to tax people. And this was going to help solve the property tax problem. Well, 35 years later, New Jersey has some of the highest income tax rates in the country, and they also have among the highest property taxes in the country. So, no, it doesn't work. Essentially, the message is the more you give people to spend, the more they will spend that money rather than offering relief. That's been the pattern in California. That's been the pattern in New York, to take other examples of where you have wound up with an income tax.
You know, it's interesting. It's just this is not really a matter of data or economics, more psychology. But I staked a claim a couple of years ago running a PAC that focused on state legislative races here, that if people appreciated the fact that property taxes are eating away at their home equity, that the government is really involved in a slow motion taking of their property, that they don't really own their home, it's just collateral for somebody else's pension. If they realize that, what they think their home is worth versus what they'll get on the market when they go to sell it because of these confiscatory property taxes, then there would be a revolt. Now I find not only does that not foment a revolt in Illinois, you could destroy the city of Chicago and the entire state by locking it down, and that also does not produce a result. So I think there's some states, and I think we've been talking about them, that you just have to follow some of the those who were ahead of the learning curve and move to greener pastures, Steve.
Well, I mean, the numbers obviously, suggest that's been happening for a while, and everyone is wondering what happens post-pandemic. I've seen the numbers in New York because of the pandemic, and, we're talking about the data showing that maybe 10% of the population left, and there's a very big question now about how many of those people are actually coming back. And the larger question, too, for cities is how many of those jobs, those office tower jobs, are coming back, because those jobs have now been shown to be something that people can do at home. And, we're looking at 30% of those jobs are being done at home now. I mean, if 10% of the office jobs in a place like Chicago and New York don't come back, what happens to the tax base? What happens to the commercial real estate market in those places? Prices plunge, property values plunge, and also income tax collections, possibly plunge, depending upon whether people are doing those jobs, completely out of state.
It's going to be like a tour of a prehistoric space. I mean, you're just going to, these big cities, you just turn them into big museums. This is where people used to live, and you can bring in the tourists to see what Chicago, New York, San Francisco, L.A. once were. Steve Malanga, contributing editor of City Journal, senior fellow at the Manhattan Institute. Steve, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
You've made the switch, and it feels so good. You've switched to Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Donley Auctions in Union, Illinois wants your guns for auction. If you have guns you want to sell, you need to call. They have buyers waiting. Don't accept pennies on the dollar. Donley Auctions will get you top dollar. They are a federal licensed firearm dealer that holds regularly scheduled firearm auctions. Get top retail dollar for your guns, knives, swords, and collectible military items. Whether your guns are old or new, one gun or a whole collection, they all have big value, and Donley Auctions can turn them into cash for you easily and legally. Call 815-923-7000. Turn your guns into cash. They offer free pickup and will do all paperwork necessary to sell your guns legally. If you're looking to purchase a firearm, visit DonleyAuctions.com.